Hey guys, Paul here. This is another development update for Boy Destroyer 2. This update should be pretty quick because there's actually not a whole lot to show. There's more to tell, but there's not a whole lot to show. Let's kind of get things underway. Right now I'm in this bounty hunter fighter. It's a light fighter. It's got these little turreted weapons that don't have a whole lot of coverage. But still, it's a light fighter with turrets. So hey, pretty cool stuff. I'm at the Olympus base and I took this racetrack mission, so let's talk about that. There we go. So not a whole lot of new assets have been added to the game. The closer to early access, the less I've been trying to spend money on assets, and the more I've been trying to focus on development of the game. So some have been added. For example, this giant mega base. It's kind of funny. Sometimes you don't really realize how big these objects are until you get really close to them. Especially because ships tend to be pretty speedy. But these things are rather large. It's a bit hard to appreciate their size when you're in a little ship that's sort of zipping around. But anyway, this is sort of a casino base ship type of deal. Feel free to speculate what this has been inspired by. I'll give you a clue. It's the movie Fifth Element. If you saw that movie, you might sort of recognize this sort of shape. So I've added this sort of neutral faction where bounty hunters, pirates, civilians will pop in here and not fight amongst each other. They'll go to this sort of casino neutral base to gamble and things like that, and take part of combat and also racing missions. So that's what I'm going to just show briefly. I'm going to jump into overworld mode. And there's actually 3 racetracks around this area. I'm going to go to the first racetrack just to demonstrate it. It's the easiest of all the racetracks. So you might be a little underwhelmed by it, but keep in mind it's like the beginner racetrack, and because of the nature of the game, I don't know who's actually going to play this, whether at what point the player is going to play this, whether they're already really good at space flight or they just started, because the sandbox game, the player could potentially first thing get over here and do these missions, or they might do it later. But I've always liked these sorts of racing missions in space sims, even though I don't play racing games. So my racetrack design might not be all that great. Again, keep in mind this is just a really basic racetrack. The other 2 are far more advanced. I might actually just show them to you because I want players to kind of seek them out and enjoy them. So this one basically just depends on maneuvering thrusters and speed and trying to get through the middle. So let's just fly through this real fast. That was an easy level mission. So the timer, we actually have 60 seconds, which is actually plenty of time to go through this. When you increase mission difficulty, you get less and less time, but more of a payout. And because I'm dogging, I'm kind of not doing as great a job as I usually am. Like I said, this is a pretty easy racetrack. These aren't meant to be the core of the game. Like any single mission in generated mission here, none of these are meant to be the core of the game, but they're meant to give you something extra, something different, a bit of a distraction, flesh out the world a little bit, where you can think to yourself, okay, there's an economy, there's gambling, there's races, there's things like that. So again, this is just the basic level mission. Let's hop to another racetrack just to take a look at it. This is the higher level racetrack. Yeah, I don't want to spoil too many things, but I think if we take a quick peek at it, things will be okay. So yeah, as you can see, this is a little more advanced of a racetrack. I'm not going to run through it. I'll let you guys run through it when you play the game. But basically features some debris in the way, things like that. I think it's kind of cool. You know, again, I don't play racing games, so my racetrack designs might not be that great. I'm certainly open to criticism. You know, if you got it, let me know. But you know, I thought it's a little cool little thing having some racing missions that are non-combat, more or less. There's a few twists and turns in there, but kind of flesh out the game world. Hopefully, I'll be adding more of these racetracks. Maybe having them even in some trenches or asteroids, like big giant asteroids, things like that. But for now, there's 3 racetracks. So you know, now that early access is pretty close, um, I've gone through all the ships I could and did some balance changes, make sure they have all their upgrades, things like that. All the ships that the player reasonably is gonna play during the launch of early access. But what I also wanted to do is to add secondary weapons. So secondary weapons are, so let's just look at primary weapons. You know, standard projectile gun. Some primary weapons are scatter guns. Some are missile launchers, torpedo launchers, beam weapons, chain guns, rail guns. There's all kinds of weapons in Void Destroyer, but the basic type of weapon is this projectile gun. So you know, it's fine, but it's a little boring, and it's great to give players like tactical choices and options. So that's where secondary weapons come in. So just like in Void Destroyer 1, secondary weapons are powerful weapons, but they're harder to use and they're more situational. So this Hornet, for example, has a secondary weapon of a charged blast. You have to hold down the secondary fire key until it charges 100% for max damage, and then let go. Now this charged blast is insta-hit, unlike these projectiles that take time to travel. So already there's different sorts of tactics for this little fighter here. You have to lead these guns, and these you don't. So it's something to keep in mind. You know, it's a little more tactical. Of course, you have to charge this weapon, but the really nice thing is it does a significant amount of damage. Like it did 40% of damage to this fighter, whereas projectile weapons do about 10% before needing a reload. So I went through all these ships that I could, and some were easier to add secondary weapons than others. For example, this ship, I almost thought I was going to add more railguns to it or more charge blasts, but it's kind of boring. I always tried to make some things a little different. So what I decided to do is to give it these weak, short-range beam emitters. This model already kind of had a nice spot for him, so I just, you know, luckily I was able to do that. So again, we have these projectile guns on this ship, except there's more of them. About twice the rate of fire as this little Hornet, but at the same time we have beam weapons. So beam weapons are also instantly hit, except they do damage over time. So again, you have different tactics. Here you have to lead the shot, but with beam weapons, you have to make sure that your target is more or less in front of you. So when you're in the heat of combat, you have to sort of worry about that a little bit. And again, it makes it a little more tactical. Let's kind of jump over here. This is a medium fighter. Has quite the firepower. Probably twice as much as that ship we were just in per burst. It's able to fire like 6 shots in a pretty rapid fashion. It has more ammo capacity, and it has this sort of nose cone gun, which just shoots a stream of fire. It just shoots until the ammo is depleted. So if we target our buddy here, our little clone, it's actually a little hard to aim, but it actually took away 30% of its health. So it's hard to aim, has a longer recharge. it works better at close ranges, but if you time it right, if you do it right, you can kill your opponent really, really efficiently. Uh, and then it's not just limited to secondary weapons aren't just limited to weapons, but they're also sometimes utilities. So here we have a heavy fighter, and I was kind of struggling what secondary weapon to add to it. I thought maybe of putting in a mine launcher right here. Just the model didn't quite work. I thought maybe tossing out missile mines. That didn't quite work either. So there's always the go-to tractor beam. I think it works really well. It's really a lot of fun. I'm going to select this target. I'm going to activate the tractor beam. And actually how it works is the further away you are, the more powerful the tractor beam is. So if we get further away, you'll notice the pool to be even more noticeable, you know. So this is sort of a utility weapon if a ship is out of your range or close to out of your range, or you want to like disrupt it. You know, this little guy is sort of struggling to sort of keep up with this. You can certainly use this tractor beam, pull this ship near you, and at the same time shoot at it when it gets closer to you. And of course, the larger the ship, the little less of a pull. Actually, it stops working at a certain point, depending on the ship. So there's all kinds of secondary weapons. There's missiles, there's mines, rail guns, flamethrowers from part one. You might notice, you might remember plasma globs, things like that. But the goal is that, let me load up a saved game. If you, hopefully this is the right one. Yeah. As you're going through ships, you know, you start in the Hornet, you go to the Brick, then the Leo, then the Taurus, then the Cobra, then the Pug. As you go up in all these different ships, the combat ships anyway, they're gonna have something to offer, something different for you, some new bit of challenge. So you might actually miss a light fighter because it had a particularly good secondary. And then the larger ship might not actually have as good a secondary as the smaller, perhaps, or it might just be different. Like this one has missile mines coming out of its this rear bay there. So you might actually these lighter fighters might actually be a little more viable as the game goes. You know, switching to a next higher up might not be as cut and dry. Like here, for example, we have two heavy fighters. This one has that tractor beam. This one has another charged blast in it, which is very powerful, but a little harder to use. So you might actually be a little torn which ship to go to next. And of course, you can test these in a simulator if you have enough money. Yeah. So not every ship has secondaries, you know, but a lot of them do. So I still have to work on some of that, especially for some pirate factions. And as new weapon systems come on board, I may potentially swap them out, make it more interesting. You know, weapons that disable ships, weapons that knock other ships in different directions. And as we get a wider variety of ships as we go through early access onto release, as we go through more exotic ships, then they might get more exotic secondary weapons. Yeah, so that's what's been going on, this sort of push towards early access, which I hope to release in about 2 weeks, within about 2 weeks, so at the end of September. So what I've been doing is I've been asking for some playtesting. I've been really lucky. I've gotten some really good playtesters for the most part, and it looks like there's at least 10-20 hours of gameplay here, which I'm really happy about. You know, you could obviously spend more, as much as you want, but there's a good chunk of gameplay in the game, and of course I'll be expanding that hopefully to about 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever, you know, hours we get to. Of course some players will play more than others, but I think easily the game will give you 20 hours of gameplay at release at least. and as a sandbox game, you can play it forever, and hopefully, you know, without getting bored, you'll be able to spend 30, 40 hours, at a playthrough. Maybe you'll play again, maybe you'll try the pirate faction, things like that. So very happy about the testers. They gave me really good feedback. I was able to polish some things. They found a bunch of bugs. The game seems really stable compared to my other releases. I think I really hammered away at a lot of the more obvious bugs. There might be some bugs underneath their surface, like crash bugs and things like that, and issues. We'll definitely fix those up really fast. So I've gotten some great feedback. I've done a lot of polish. So I'm really excited about early access. It's a little funny because, as an indie developer, when you're sitting at your basement, um, you might be just completely delusional, and this game might just be a total flop and nobody likes it, or you might be delusional and the game is really good, but nobody knows about it, nobody finds out about it, nobody plays it, and still a flop. So the indie market is pretty tough right now. It's tough to be discovered. There's such a huge variety of games out there for you guys and me. I'm a gamer also, both good and bad. Great games, bad games. Either way, there's like a huge variety of choices for you guys, and for other players, and that means for people like me, putting our efforts into the pool of games on Steam. It's tougher and tougher to be noticed. But if Void Destroyer 2 does as well as Void Destroyer 1, I'll be able to keep making games, keep expanding it, keep adding assets and ships at a increased rate, things like that. Things should go really well. So I'm very optimistic, but at the same time, again, it's sort of, the sort of do or die moment, I guess you could call it, where you find out whether, hey, you know, did you invest too much money, and did you jeopardize potentially your future and potentially your career by going the indie route? So hey, I'm gonna be nervous, excited, all those sorts of things. I hope you guys come along for the ride. I hope you guys jump onto early access, give me feedback, criticism, support, help. I need all those things. Put the game through its paces. Let me know what works, what doesn't. If there's something boring that you're doing, let me know. Hey, I did this. It was boring, but I did it to get money. That's very important for me to know. If there's something really fun that you were doing, let me know that, so then I can make it stronger and stronger, those aspects. Yeah, so I'm excited about early access. I'm gonna have a more definitive launch date, probably over the weekend, because when I start sending codes to reviewers, I'm probably have to kind of tell them, like, hey, not that there's going to be any sort of embargo on a video. I just want them to make a video as soon or as late or whenever they can. But usually you kind of tell them, like, hey, this is when the game's going to launch. Sometimes they time it with them to maximize their views, things like that. So after the weekend, I should like settle on more of a solid launch date. I'm actually pretty confident about the game. Even if I release it now, I think it's stable, it's polished. But that extra week is going to be for marketing, that extra week and a half or 2 weeks. Okay, guys, yeah, I think I rambled long enough. Once again, thanks for all your support. Please share this project with a friend, friends, enemies, whoever might be interested in a space sandbox game. I hope that you guys get a lot of enjoyment out of it. Hope to see you guys at early access. Really appreciate your support. And yeah, thanks and have a great day.